going to talk a bit about getting a decent bass sound out of what's supposedly a really bad distortion. And the distortion that I'm going to be using today is a Beta Aivin DS-100 that I picked up from a friend who really hated it. Now, a lot of people say distortion on bass is, well, not good because it gets lost in the band mix. And I just want to suggest some simple solutions for that. Some of it is what you can do as a bassist, and some of it is, as a band, how you improve your overall sound together. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to lay down some tracks using a looper and a guitar. And I'm not a guitarist, so it's probably going to suck, but it will have to do. And then after that, I'm going to lay down a bass track with the looper as well, and play around with the distortion. So for the guitar, I'll be using a multi-storm to get some distortion and delay running. And for the bass, I'll be using the DS-100 and a Boss line selector, which is a very useful tool. Okay, so guitar tracks. I guess. And now for the bass track. So usually you'll find with a clean bass track, it's very easy to run clean bass and clean guitar. How you want to play. So even if you turn your volume up, depending on how you EQ, you will stand out differently. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add this track to the looper. About the volume unbalance. See what I can do about it. Okay, so far so good. You don't really get any tracks overshadowing each other. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna kick on the distortion in the guitar. Point, there's still not much difference. You can still hear the bass quite clearly, which is what you get in a lot of rock bands. You have a clean driving bass, over a distorted guitar sound, which is this conventional rock setup. But then sometimes you want more grit on your bass, so let's kick on the distortion. And then all of a sudden, you can't hear the guitar. So guitarist turns himself up. And then you can't hear the bass. Bassist turns up. So basically what you're getting is the amps are fighting each other for volume. And this is actually not neat. It's actually pointless because it's a volume war and nobody's going to win. The band's going to sound like shit. So one thing you can do first is look at your EQ. Let's turn it back on. Just listen to bass alone. So the distortion sounds pretty badass on its own, but in the mix it disappears, and that's because the lows vanish. So what you can do is adjust the EQ again. Let's take a listen to the guitar first. This guitar sounds very full. What if we do this? I just cut the bass. Now it sounds really thin. But what about in the mix? So you might notice the bass can be heard all the way now that the guitar has cut the lowest frequencies, but the guitar can't always be heard, so let's do the same with the bass. You can see with this, you can hear the distortion on the bass, and you can hear the guitars clearly because they are giving way to each other. Guitars take the highs, bass take the lows mostly, and so on. Individually, they don't sound that good. Guitars doesn't sound as full. And the bass loses sound aggressiveness, but together in the band mix, the other problem that you always see is that the bass loses definition, so I'm going to use this to do a blend by mixing. So let's take a look at this. Again, we have distorted guitars and clean bass. I'm going to add in the distortion bit by bit. By blending sound and clean sound, you get the sharp attack from the clean bass sound, but you also get the grit from the distortion. What about the pedal itself? Let's say your amp doesn't have any mixing. I'm going to go back to just purely distortion. Well, on the distortion knob, you can see these lows and highs. You can change the amount of grit that you have on the bass. What about a very lightly driven bass sound? So you can still hear everybody quite clearly. So just a bit of grit. You can still hear clearly even without the beat. What if you're bending? So, sometimes when they have distortion and you find your sound vanishing, don't blame the distortion. Try to see what you can do with the EQ, and if you are playing in a band, you are a team, work together.